and employees of the Pittsburgh Public School District. I'd like to ask board members to please come forward, and I will turn the microphone over to Ms. Heather Hobson.
Thank you, Ms. Suzuta. This evening, we are presenting the Distinguished Achievement Award to parent and education advocate Maria Searcy. Searcy was elected as this month's award recipient for her strong commitment to public education. Her role in setting up a Parent Information Resource Center at Pittsburgh Obama 6 through 12, and her recent national award for racial justice and educational equity. Searcy is a member of Pennsylvania's Title I State Parent Advisory Committee, Pittsburgh Public Schools Equity Advisory Panel, and an A+ Schools Parent Ambassador. Last month, she received a Community Empowerment Award at the 4th Annual National Summit for Courageous Conversation held in San Antonio, Texas. The award is presented to community members who are passionate about the welfare of children, achieve equity through broad-based community engagement, and who are relentless in the pursuit of transforming the relationship between schools, families, and community organizations so that all children can excel academically, culturally, and socially. An example of Searcy striving to bring communities and schools closer together happened earlier this month. Searcy gathered volunteers and family members to set up a Parent Information and Resource Center at Pittsburgh Obama. The center supports the school in welcoming parents, guardians, and community members as active and effective partners in student achievement, to take a leading role in children's learning at home, support children's learning at school, and make decisions about children's educational options. With furniture donated from the Heinz Endowments and a room dedicated to Dr. Wayne Walters, the principal of Pittsburgh Obama International Baccalaureate Academy, Maria and her volunteers created a place where parents can come together to support each other and their students. Her work has led to her being invited to Pittsburgh Coro's Center for Civic Leadership to participate in its week-long study focused on quality, equality, and equity in public education in recognition of her exemplary parent engagement work in Pittsburgh Public Schools. So we would like to welcome Ms. Searcy and her daughter to the front and congratulate you for being this month's Distinguished Achievement Award recipient. Thank you. Congratulations again to Ms. Searcy for becoming this month's Distinguished Achievement Award recipient. Thank you. This concludes our presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Hobson. Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Brentley?
Here.
Mrs. Kalezi?
Here.
Mrs. Fink? Here. Dr. Hawley?
Here.
Mr. Eisler?
Present.
Mr. McCray?
Here.
Ms. Shealy?
Here.
Mr. Sumter?
Present.
Mrs. Azuda?
Here.
All members present.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Sumter to please share our core beliefs and commitments.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. The Pittsburgh Board of Education is committed to educating all children to their highest level of academic achievement. Pittsburgh Board of Education is committed to providing a safe and orderly environment for all students and employees. Pittsburgh Board of Education is committed to providing efficient and effective support for all students, families, teachers, and administrators. Pittsburgh Board of Education is committed to distributing resources in an efficient and equitable manner to address all the needs of all students to the maximum extent feasible. And later on this evening, one of the agenda items that will be discussed is right on that topic, the topic of equity. Last but not least, the Pittsburgh Board of Education is committed to improving public confidence and encouraging strong parental community engagement in the district. We feel that these 5 commitments, which can be reflected as core beliefs and goals for the district, will guide this board and improve the governance of this board, which we feel translates into improving academic achievement in the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Will everyone please turn to the minutes from the October 24th, 2012 legislative meeting. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions?
Second.
Ister Khalazy. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you very much. This time I'd like to read the executive statement on executive sessions. In addition to executive sessions announced at the legislative meeting of October 24th, 2012, the board met in executive sessions on November 14th, 2012, and immediately before this legislative meeting to discuss various personnel matters that may include, but are not limited to, administrative vacancies and positions opened and closed. Finally, at the executive session immediately before this legislative meeting, the board discussed student discipline cases that involved violations of various portions of the Code of Student Conduct. The board does not vote at executive sessions. We'll begin this evening with the committee report on education that's before you, submitted by Ms. Shireen Cheely and her committee. If you would please turn to page 9 of 9 of this report, I'd like to give you the student suspension, transfer, and expulsion numbers for this month. We had 71 students suspended for 4 to 10 days, no students suspended for 4 to 10 days and transferred to another Pittsburgh public school, 1 student expelled out of school for 11 days or more, and no students expelled out of school for 11 days or more and transferred to another Pittsburgh public school. Item number 11 in the committee report on education was pulled for further discussion at agenda review. Are there any additional items in the committee report on education that board members would like pulled at this time? All right, seeing none, we'll begin discussion on item number 11. As Mr. Sumter had mentioned, it is the Equity Getting to All plan. And are there any comments or questions at this time? Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. As mentioned earlier, one of the commitments of the Pittsburgh Board of Education is to distribute resources in an effective and equitable manner. Equitable distribution of resources, to do that efficiently, to address the needs of all students. The item before us is the Equity Getting to All plan, and that the Board of Directors authorize its proper officers to endorse the Equity Getting to All plan, a plan to accelerate student achievement and eliminate racial disparities in the Pittsburgh public schools. I've been looking for a plan such as this since I've been on the board, and coming on the board in 2005 of December, and now we're at 2012, a couple weeks away from December, but it is before us. At the State of the District presentation just held recently, one of the parents, Pam Littlepool, mentioned about the urgency of doing this work. And she reiterated the urgency. And that is a paramount concern. The biggest problem that we have within the district is the disparity in education, that there should not be a difference. There should not be a disparity of any shape, form, or manner. And to deal with what perhaps may be some of the causes of that, hopefully this plan will get at or overcome or mitigate those problems. But still, it's good to have it as an item, as an agenda item that we are focusing attention on, and being that it's the only item of the education agenda that was pulled for discussion, that this becomes a major priority. And because of that urgency, this is something that we really have to deal with and tackle. Also at that State of the District presentation, Dr. Pedro Noguera mentioned about things being in place within the district, but there being gaps that exist, gaps between the administration and the field or whatever. But he did mention that's causing a problem. The first question I have is, Dr. Lane, have you had any discussion with Dr. Noguera regarding those gaps, the identification of those gaps, or what to be done about those?
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Yes, Dr. Noguera has, as you know, been working with two of our high schools to help them begin to accelerate the achievement for students in those two high schools. But he also has been working with those of us here at Central Administration as well about what we need to be doing to better support schools so that they improve. He has pointed out to us the need to ensure that, again, we have strong teaching going on in each of our classrooms, and I think he mentioned that again last week when he was here at the State of the District event. He also talks about how we work as a team in order to support schools well. So, yes, we are discussing those, and he, in fact, is going to be with us again next month as we talk about the issues that this plan compels us to address.
The title of the plan is Equity Getting to All Plan, and Dr. Noguera is working with two specific high schools within the district. However, will this plan be for all students in the district?
Yes, the equity plan is for the whole district. It is not focused on two schools. Now, we do have teams. He has a team working directly with two schools, but we also have other things going on in other schools. And in fact, we remind ourselves that not all our schools have significant racial disparities. Some do not. But the plan, however, is district-wide. It's not focused on just some schools.
Okay. Is there anything in this plan that will be done different as far as the approach or the manner of which the disparities will be addressed or eliminated that hasn't been done thus far?
The information we had from Dr. Noguera was more about doing things better more than adding more things. And for example, he is very much, as I mentioned, encouraging us to focus on what good teaching looks like and making sure every teacher in Pittsburgh knows how to be a highly effective teacher. So that's one of the issues. Having a strong team at Central Administration, focusing on the work in regard to equity was another part of that. So the thing that I guess would be significantly maybe more of all of the things that are in the equity plan is on the issue of parent engagement. And as the board is aware, we have identified a teacher at each school who will be in charge, so to speak, of enhancing and developing greater parent engagement at that school. We also are going to be providing some training to those teachers to help them know how to better reach some of our parents we struggle to make contact with. So if there's anything that's actually more, I think the parent engagement piece would be the one that I would identify.
Okay. Is there anything in the plan that addresses or looks at the culture within the city of Pittsburgh in terms of questions have been posed to parents, questions have been posed to employees when asked to address the needs of the neediest students, it would be recommended to put effective teachers in front of them. There was pushback from parents, pushback from employees of the district regarding that very topic. What can be done to overcome that cultural phenomenon that exists within the city of Pittsburgh?
The culture is very important, and that is one aspect of the culture that you're right. We had both parents and staff members push back on that particular strategy, and that strategy actually is a part of our Empowering Effective Teachers plan as well. That was one of the things that we clearly called out in that plan. I think based on the parent response, I think that it would be maybe a lot to expect parents to endorse that if they thought it would cost their own child a good teacher. And so, in a way, I'd love it if parents supported that idea, but I think that if they're concerned that it might mean that my child is going to now have a less effective teacher in order for someone else's child to have a more effective teacher, I guess I can understand why some parents would kind of balk, frankly, at that idea. But the real solution is to make sure that there are enough effective teachers to go around. And so that we're not, the goal of having an effective teacher in front of every child doesn't mean that some children are going to now have, an ineffective teacher in order to make that a reality. The goal would be so that every teacher and every child would have one.
I guess it gets to the point where we as a district, or we as a city, or we as a board need to all come together regarding the term equity, which in my mind, equity means to provide resources to those who have the most need. That people need to understand that if you can't have success in one part of the district and failure in another part of the district, the whole district is going under. So unless we raise the achievement of the entire district, we as a district can't be successful. We're talking about losing population. We're talking about charter schools filling gaps or holes within the district. And we shouldn't be faced with that type of situation where we have to think about closing schools or denying certain neighborhoods the opportunity to have educational resources within. So again, I reiterate that cultural mindset or shift in that cultural mindset such that we reach out and help those who have the most need. And again, repeat the commitment of this board is that we are committed to distributing resources in an efficient and equitable manner to address the needs of all students to the maximum extent feasible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Are there any other comments on this equity getting to all plan?
I'm
Dr. Holly.
concerned. Thank you. I'm concerned about. Well, it's not a concern. I'm just hoping that the board will be apprised of the activities that you're doing to support the plan will be given to us in a timely fashion. I think Mr. Sumter alluded to that, but I want to make it clear that I definitely want to know the kinds of activities that we're doing in the district that support equity. As I said before, equity doesn't always mean equal. It really means what the needs of the students, and that we're going to be able to do that. I'm also concerned about the fact that I want to be very clear that we want to make sure that there is a equitable way in which our Human Resources Department promotes and hires people in this district, and especially those people with African American descent, because I'm not seeing that happen very often within this district. So I just want to make sure that the playing field is equal for everybody.
Any other comments on the plan? All right. Are there any other items in the Education Committee report that anyone would like to comment on? Mr. Brentley.
Yes, I have comments on two questions. The first one is 17 on 7 of 9 and also 17A. And this is the calendar. And Dr. Lane, this is the calendar for the 2013-14 year. And I just want to just kind of put up a flag to make sure that we do not overlook or delete the Take a Father to School Day. I know it's scheduled for, it's usually in May, second or third week. I know this is kind of preliminary here, but I want to just wave my flag now. So as we move forward with putting calendars together, that we include that date and that event on our calendars, or any calendars we move forward, so we won't have to kind of do it as we go along, which we'll have to do next year.
Yes, Mr. Brentley, we'll work on including that date so that people have early notice.
Thank you.
Wait a minute before you go on. Any other comments on the school calendar? Okay, go ahead.
The second issue is the suspension on page 9 of 9 and the numbers that we see. Can somebody just mention, and I think I've raised a question before and I'll ask again, are we seeing any kind of patterns in terms of increase in numbers of suspension, regardless of their 4 to 10 days or either longer, in what schools? The reason why I asked the question is, are we able to see a pattern in those schools that we had to bus students into, and those students who are bused and new to that community, new to that school, are we seeing an increase in their acting out or their discipline issues? Is it a cultural issue with the students and staff that are there? And so I don't know if there's a pattern. I do want to just kind of put that out there. So as we vote and get these numbers before us, it's important that we begin to track that to see if that is the case, So no need to respond, but just to put it out there. Thank you.
Any other comments on number 22? Ms. Shealy.
And correct me if this is not legal, but can we get suspension data to Mr. Brentley's point by school?
Yes.
Can I make that request? Do I need to do an item to make that request?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the second part of your question.
Can we make that request as a board?
Yes.
Thank you.
We will get you that.
Anything else on number 22? Okay, Mr. Brentley.
This is not an item here. I just wanted to take a second. The young lady that we just recognized, Maria Searcy, I just wanted to give a special, she's still here, special congratulations. If I'm not mistaken, she is also a member of the Equity Advisory Panel. Out of all of the many, many hats that she wears on behalf of our district, she is representative of what I often advocate when we often hear folks talk about the problems of the district, and when folks aren't able to put their fingers on the issue or solve it, the first thing they say is, well, there's no parent involvement. And that is simply not true. There are lots of Maria Searcy's in this district, and I just want to say congratulations again, and I'm extremely proud to know the fact that she, of course, is from District 8. So congratulations again.
All right, Dr. Hawley.
Yes, I see that there are many memorandums of understanding with Homewood Children's Village and what they're doing in Faison and Crescent. I was just wondering, are there any memorandums of understanding coming to us for Westinghouse? The high school, the 6 to 12 build up.
Dr. Hawley, not that I'm aware of, but I will check and find out if there are additional things coming forward in regard to, are you talking about specifically Homewood Children's Village?
Yes.
Okay, I'll find out.
I see the other parts that Dr. Crenshaw has placed with us today, but from my last meeting with them, I was under the impression that they were doing certain activities with the school, and I was wondering where the memorandum of understanding is for those activities.
As I said, I'll have to find out, but it may be that they're covered under their current memorandum of understanding. I don't know. So it may not require a new one, but I'll find out.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Are there any other items on the Committee on Education that anyone would like to discuss? Seeing none, Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Brentley,
Yes.
Mrs. Scalise,
Yes.
Mrs. Fink,
Yes.
Dr. Hawley,
Yes.
Mr. Eisler,
Yes.
Mr. McCray,
Yes.
Ms. Shealy,
Yes.
Mr. Sumter,
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda.
Yes.
Report's approved unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. We will now move on to the committee report on business and finance submitted by Mr. McCray and his committee. Before we begin discussion on the report, I'd like to ask Mr. Ron Joseph to provide us with updated information on item number 8, Radelet McCarthy Paletta, Inc., Charter School Inspections.
Thank you, Mrs. Zuda. Item number 8 for Radelet McCarthy Paletta, Inc. should read, resolved that the Board of Education of the School District of Pittsburgh authorizes proper officers to enter into an agreement with Radelet McCarthy Paletta, Inc. to perform site inspections on 9 existing charter schools and new applications received through November 15, 2012. The operating period shall be from December 1st, 2012 to December 31st, 2013. The contract amount shall not exceed $50,000 from account line 6300 373 4400 330. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. There were no items pulled at agenda review from the Committee on Business and Finance. Are there any items anyone would like to discuss now? Ms. Shealy.
Sorry. Just the item that Mr. Joseph just read, what's different?
The do not exceed amount has been increased to accommodate new charter school applications received through November 15th.
I'm sorry, it was increased, it's different from agenda review, but not from what I'm reading in front of me.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Brentley.
Questions on number 8 again. I rarely will respond to smaller items, ticket items such as this one, but I think symbolically it's important to talk about it. I will not be supporting this item. Information shared number, this is the Radelet McCarthy Paletta, Inc., number 8. This is page 5 of 9. And I think that one of the things we have to be mindful of, this is a service that at one time was provided in-house, provided by our top-notch employees, because there were some concerns raised as if they were able to do it fairly. We immediately jumped to spending dollars. And now here we are, $50,000 to do site inspections. I cannot support it because the report that we've also received this month about the financial conditions of this city. This one here is symbolic, but I think if we do 5, 10, 15, 20 of these items, you will see that at times we are contributing to our financial situation. We have a staff. We have certified individuals. We have top-notch people capable of doing this. We are not bound by any law to have an outside group or an outside company to do it. We can continue to serve, but in an attempt to be honest and I guess to bend over backwards, we jump to spending money. And so I cannot support it. I will not support it. Dr. Lane, I think it's important for you to be mindful of that the message that we give to the public is one thing, but it appears when we sit down at the table, we practice and do some other things. This here is the example. And I would hope my colleagues would join me on this one. We have staff capable of doing this. We should be encouraging not only this, but we should be encouraging other in-house kinds of things that we can begin to do to be creative around the budgeting situation and be creative on tapping the different skill sets of employees that we have in the district before jumping to spending money. Now, originally this was $40,000, And with the addition of another charter school application, we jumped it up to $10,000. We have to show the public that whatever our plan of action, which we don't have one at this point, is we are doing everything possible at this table to get the highest and the best use of our dollars. And I think this is symbolic of not being able to do that. The amount is small, and I grant that, but we have to do some things, if necessary, symbolically, to send the message, to get in our frame of mind, and to teach our staff that we have to be careful on how we spend dollars, so that whatever they're planned or whatever we're talking about in 2015, the possibility of running out of money is just unbelievable to even think about. And so we need to do a whole lot of these things before we move forward. So I will not be supporting that. My support will go to our top-notch staff, highly qualified, highly capable, highly professional, of providing this service free of charge. Thank you.
Are there any other comments on number 8? Yes. Dr. Hawley.
Yes. Mr. Camarda, can you tell us again why you're actually going to an outside agency for this work?
The administration has decided some years ago that to show that these are impartial reviews, that it was best to go to an external source to evaluate the properties, because it was clear the district had a vested interest to find fault within the properties. So we went external for that expert advice and assistance on these evaluations.
My major concern in this is that, and I'm sure that this company is a reputable company, or else you wouldn't have chosen them. So I have nothing against the company itself. As much as I have concern that our staff would actually know 2 phases here: whether or not the building is acceptable for teaching students, but also is it okay in terms of us having an educational activity going on in that building. And they know that they have the expertise in that area. And I'm not sure if this company is going to be able to do that work as thoroughly as our own people would be able to do. That's my main concern. Will they be working with this company at all?
This is a company that actually has done other work for the district beyond this, so they're quite deep and quite experienced related to educational facilities environments. So I think they're well schooled and prepared and able to do that because of assistance they provided us and within our own facilities and our own structures.
What did they actually do? Did they?
They're consultants related to architectural and engineering services for us, and they provided that type of activity.
And I have to agree with Mr. Brentley on this. It is a small amount, but it's an amount that we really don't have to spend if we don't want to, because our own staff is more than capable of doing this work. So I'm a little bit torn between giving them, saying that they can have this contract and taking our staff out of the picture. I really would prefer to have our own staff tell us if the building is appropriate for school use. So I'm just torn on this.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Any other comments on number 8? Any other comments or questions on anything else on the report? Mrs. Fink.
I just want to point out number 16 under general authorizations, the board resolution expressing opposition to sequestration. And I would really strongly urge all parents and, in fact, all citizens watching this meeting that you call your congressman, your state senator, your United States senator, and the president, and let them know that to really work this out, because particularly for Head Start parents, this money is so important, and we really need to get this budget issue resolved at the federal level. It will affect not only our school district, but every school district in the United States. So this is very important, and I applaud the fact that we are doing this tonight, but I also think that private citizens need to be doing the communication to let their senators and congressmen know how they feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fink. This is also known as a funding cliff. It started out as sequestration. Now it's being referred to on news as funding cliff. Mr. Sumter, is this still on number 16? Okay, Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Mrs. Hazuda. I would ask, because of the importance of this resolution, that if possible, we could have the now therefore be it resolved read in the public so that the public hears what this resolution is all about, or further discussion explaining why we're proposing this resolution. Also, in item 3 of the resolution, it was asked if we could include the name of the President of the United States and not just referred to as a title, because we do have other names mentioned in that. So can we have that included in this resolution?
Okay, yeah, Mr. Sumter, would you make that as a motion, please?
I move that the name of the President of the United States be included in the resolution on item number 3.
Second.
Sumter and Shealy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Mr. Sumter, since you are a representative to the PSBA, I would like to ask you that you read the now therefore be it resolved.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Yeah, good.
Vote on it. I mean, we will, but he's just going to read it. It doesn't.
Okay, but I wanted to add something with that, if I could.
He still has to read it so it's in the record.
I understand
And you
that.
can change it if you
No, I'm not changing anything. I
Okay,
just would ask that when he finishes reading it, Mr. Joseph, if you would just give the definition of what that means. And I would also ask that we put it on our website. It's a big word, it can be intimidating, but when you explain it to taxpayers and parents, they will clearly see that they have a role in terms of the advocacy of what we're getting ready to do. And so that's all I wanted to add, is that when he finishes that, somebody would explain it in simple terms where we can understand it and bring it home.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Brentley. So we'll be back to Mr. Sumter. Would you please read the now therefore be it resolved?
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. This is a board resolution expressing opposition to sequestration. Now therefore be it resolved, and it is hereby resolved as follows. The Board of Public Education, I just want to stop. I need to do the whereases because of the importance of this item to fully educate the public. Thank you for the indulgence. Whereas the School District of Pittsburgh, its students and families are dependent upon federal funding of educational programs at all levels, and whereas such programs are critical to the mission of the school district in providing and achieving excellence for all, and whereas due to the inability of the United States Congress and the Senate to agree on a plan to address fiscal issues, there exists the threat of sequestration or the interruption in funding of these programs by the federal government, and whereas such sequestration or defunding would result in a catastrophic interruption of programs within the district, placing the initiatives for student achievement in grave peril. Now, therefore, be it resolved, and it is hereby resolved as follows. The Board of Public Education of the School District of Pittsburgh, on behalf of the students, families, and staff, states its opposition to the sequestration of funds for education programs funded by the federal government. Number 2, the Board urges the members of the United States Congress, the United States Senate, and the executive branch to take all necessary steps to ensure the funds remain available for such programs. Number 3, the resolution shall be spread upon the minutes, and a certified copy thereof shall be transmitted to the Pennsylvania Congressional Delegation, the Honorable Robert P. Casey, the Honorable Pat Toomey, and the Honorable Barack Obama, President of the United States.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Mr. Camarda or Mr. Joseph, can you, as our financial gurus, add more information to that?
So sequestration is the automatic cancellation of federal discretionary funds per the Budget Control Act of 2011. There was a joint select committee created in accordance with that act to identify $1.2 trillion in cuts over the next decade in order to reduce our deficit. Those cuts were not identified, so beginning January 1st, 2013, there will be automatic cuts to federal discretionary funds such as education in the amount of $900 million over the next decade.
Thank you. Any other comments on number 16? Mrs. Fink, thank you for bringing this to the forefront for our having this discussion. Okay, are there any other items in the business and finance report? Anything? All right, Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, on the report, I'll be voting no on page 5 of 9, number 8.
Mrs. Khaleesi.
Yes.
Mrs. Fink.
Yes.
Dr. Hawley.
Yes on the report as a whole, no on page 5, number 8.
Mr. McCray. Excuse me, Mr. Eisler.
Yes.
Mr. McCray.
Yes.
Ms. Shealy has stepped out. Mr. Sumter.
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda.
Yes.
Okay, the entire report is approved, and item 8 on page 5 is approved 6-2.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Weiss.
Mrs. Azuda, may we record Mrs. Shealy's vote when she comes back in so that it can be unanimous for the sequestration vote, please?
That's a lovely
Thank
idea.
you.
Thank you. Okay, let's now move on to the report on personnel that is before you that includes Addendum A. Are there any questions on the personnel report at this time? And I'll start with Mr. Brentley and just go around in order. Mr. Brentley.
I have nothing on the entire report. There is one item that concerns me. I will not raise those concerns, but what I'll do today is to just, I will abstain on the report, but I would like to extend to the staff and administration, sometimes there are opportunities when we as board members can share, and I would just hope that we'd find a way to open that up a little bit more to consider some of the things that we share in terms of positions, recommendations, and or the fillings of some vacancies. So I will simply abstain, will not go into detail on one or two items, but just want to extend another opportunity to please consider the wealth of expertise that we have at this end of the table, not just on this issue, but on a lot of issues. Thank you.
We can just, well, not Ms. Shealy's turn. Can we ask if we can record her votes on the business agenda?
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Ms. Khaleesi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could ask Ms. Spoler, if you could just give me a quick explanation of page 21, number 2. It's that I understand this is a change in title, no change in dollars or job description from what I understand here. Can you explain why we're even changing the title? Number 2 on page 21.
Yes, this is simply a change in title. The title is one that is has been long-standing and no longer really captures the work that is really servicing media rather than the audio-visual instructional designation that the old title contemplated. So this is really a change in title to match really the evolving work done by this individual. It is a position held by a sole individual.
Thank you. I wasn't necessarily concerned about an individual. I was just more interested in knowing why the title change at all. I mean, I understand what this says. I guess what I'm trying to understand is when and how is this decision made as to when we go down the road of changing a title for any given reason for any given position? I mean, is there a criteria you follow?
So I would not say there's a criteria. It is a recommendation by the head of that organization when they feel as though in the review of the positions in their organization, the work being performed by a position is no longer appropriately captured in the nomenclature of the title.
Okay, so given that in the last, 15, 16 months, we've had many closing of positions and stuff, will we be reviewing these sort of things more? I guess would be my...
I think as we look at organizations and align the work that individuals are doing with the goals of the organization, I think these kinds of, really essentially cleanup items will come and I think help us to, be situated appropriately in terms of the people doing the work and having the right labels for that work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi. Mrs. Fink? Dr. Hawley.
I'll agree with Mr. Brentley's first statement, but I wanted to ask Mr. Camarda, on addendum item 1, the position of Director, Budget Development and Management, this is a new position?
Yes, it is.
This isn't a position that you closed before and had to reopen?
No.
It isn't? Okay. That's all.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Mr. Eisler? Mr. McCray?
I just want to recognize and thank our employees in the military for a job well done.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Mr. Sumter? Ms. Shealy? Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Brentley?
I support the report, but I will be abstaining for one minor concern here. Thank you.
Ms. Khaleesi?
Yes.
Mrs. Fink?
Yes.
Dr. Hawley?
I'll be abstaining from the report.
Mr. Eisler?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Ms. Shealy? Yes. Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda?
Yes.
Report's approved, 7 yes, 2 abstentions.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. I'd like to call the board's attention to the financial statement dated October 31st, 2012. Any comments? Mr. Eisler?
As always, thank you, Mrs. Azuda. If I may ask either Mr. Camardi and or Mr. Joseph if we can take a look at the key financial indicators and talk a little bit about this as the, going into the end of our fiscal year. And the encumbrances are way off, and is there a reason for that?
It's timing related processing, contracts, requisitions. And
so do you anticipate that this will equalize, or is it going to be worse than last year, better than last year? How do you see it, Mr. Camarda?
I expect by the time we end our accrual period, we'll probably end at the same level we ended at the end of 2011.
And then in terms of revenues, and I think this is very important because there's a tremendous amount of unknowns given the new assessments that are going to be out and the role all the government entities have in determining what millage is going to be. Our revenues are down.
Correct.
And do we know whether that is more in the property tax and or the earned income, or is it in both?
Well, compared to 2011, when you're doing a 12-month roll forward, at that point in time, we did have stimulus funds as well as EdJob funds, but right now, that accounted for probably about $21 million of that amount if you're looking at a 12-month roll forward. But right now, we actually look at it as it's more earned income right now.
So, I mean, that's a really good point, Mr. Joseph. It is neither of the taxes that we levy as a school district, but as a result of the ending of federal funds to the district. And I'm assuming that those programs also ended with the ending of the fundings from the federal government?
Correct.
So this will be a one-shot thing, and then we should equalize and move forward, correct?
Correct.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Thank you, Mrs. Azuda.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. There are no new business items before us. Are there any items to be brought before the board at this time that require board approval? Mr. Brentley?
Yes, as I mentioned at the agenda review, I do have the items that I mentioned I was going to move forward with, and I do have some of the items here if anybody wants a copy of it, but I'll just begin to read them. I'm calling this, this is the...
Can we all have a copy,
sure.
please?
This is the Pittsburgh Public Schools Public Access System. And these are items that I think would be helpful as we go through these tough times financially. And the most important thing is to have total buy-in with the public, taxpayers, and parents on the fact that we are sharing information, we are openly about it, and we are soliciting their support. More importantly, we are making ourselves available as elected officials and as staff and employees of the district. The first thing I would like to suggest is the establishment of a 24-hour system that we would use listing the monthly meetings, time, dates, and places, and locations, and important meetings that would be held in the administration building. This message should also include whether or not the meeting is a public or non-public speaking meeting. Explanation, there are often times where meetings are held the public is not aware. We often point to the internet and the website. The fact is that there are still large numbers who simply don't have access. With a 24-hour dedicated number that would simply change each month, listing legislative meeting, business, any other meetings, time, dates of the public hearing, and then a little note to let them know that this is a meeting where you can come and speak, or this is not a meeting. But that, I think, would help in making our meetings more open and available to the public. Number two, the implementation of a 24-hour voicemail access messaging system on the board phone. The purpose of all of the board members it would be to have access 24 hours to messages from the public, particularly during working hours. For an example, a taxpayer could simply call the board office and follow the prompt to leave a message for a particular board member, i.e. suggestions. For instance, there are 9 numbers on the phone. I represent District 8. They would simply call the board number. You push in number 8, my voice would come on, and you can leave a message with me. And board members would simply put in their pen anywhere 24 hours a day to access the feedback, the public comment on whatever the issues may be. Number 3, public hearings. All public hearings and speakers should have full access to the conference room. This new system of keeping the public away from the board and having speakers to come outside of the conference room to speak makes no sense. It is almost suggesting that we have a distance away from them, and I think it should be the complete opposite. We should all be together while listening to their concerns, and we should all be together when they do the most important thing, and that is take time out of their busy schedule to come to share with us their questions and their comments. Also, all of our meetings, and it's another item here, all of our meetings should be held in conference room A on the first floor. Keep in mind, we use the smallest room in this building to have our education meeting, education and business affairs meetings, limited seating, and it's very difficult for the public, if they're lucky enough to get through the locked doors, the seating is limited. And so with the meetings being held on the first floor, it gives us full access to those who are disabled, but more importantly, there is never a question of seating arrangements for those in the public who are interested in attending. Number 5 is to unlock all of the doors at all public meetings. We should not be in this building talking about spending public dollars while having the public having to jump through hoops to get to the meeting to find out how we're spending their dollars. The main building, there's a door on it. there's a lock on it, and then when you get up on the second floor, you got to go through another lock. During the time of the meeting, make it very clear to the public, here's where you come in, and if you have to come in the other door if it's easier, we can do that as well. But unlock the doors, and let's make this building public and parent friendly, especially during our meetings. Number 6, we should have a course stenographer at all public meetings. That's the education meeting, business committee meetings, agenda review, and the legislative meeting. And make the transcripts available for a small flat fee of $10 for any of the meetings requested. The reason for this item is that just getting the report on the financial conditions of this board, I think every taxpayer should have been there to hear the discussions and to hear the questions that were raised, and also to hear the response from the staff. I think it would have been very, very important for them to hear. And so we would make a copy of the transcripts available that we can hold in the business office. If anyone wants to come and get a copy of it, yes, I know that's a small fee for paper, but we let it not to exceed $10 for the taxpayer so that they can have access and to simply learn the process. And I'm only asking that we support this. We support these items. Actually, it's kind of embarrassing to even have to make these recommendations because this is something that we should have had in place. Another item that's here, and I think I may have skipped over, is our public hearings. If you attend the public hearings, we no longer have the microphone. Someone had the microphones removed. This is a public hearing. And while we are encouraged or discouraged of engaging the public while they're speaking, but symbolically, you don't take away the microphone or to suggest that that elected official, his or her hands are tied behind their back and they can't engage if there's one item that they need to ask someone a question. You bring them back. We're elected officials. That is very, 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 very close to trying to censor things here in this school board chambers. And so I'm asking that those items, that the microphones would be placed back at the tables during the public hearings. And this is here before us, just about zero cost to make this Pittsburgh Public Schools public access system available. We need partners for what we're getting ready to go through in the next 24 months. We need help and we need suggestions, and we should not do anything that would hinder the public from sharing or getting information.
So, Mr. Brentley, we did not see this until now. Is it your intention that each of these be individually voted on tonight, or are you just putting them forward so that for food for thought and discussion at a further time? I'm not sure what you're requesting.
This should be voted on as a group. I'm not interested in trying to explain one item versus the other item. What is here that is offensive to anyone who's an elected official or an employee? Keep in mind that prior to the previous administration, most of these things were already in place. It's just in the last 4, 5, 6 years, these items were slowly removed and slowly taken away from our ability to communicate to the public. So it is here. It is a small thing that we should be doing, and I think we should get a unanimous vote on it because it is something we should have been doing or making available to the public.
Have you checked to see if our phone system has these capabilities?
We've checked 4 or 5 years ago because when I introduced this a couple of years ago, it was available. It was just a minor thing of bringing in a tech, setting the system up in our board, and then giving board members access to their setting up their PIN numbers. And the other one is just a no-brainer. It's just a dedicated line where an employee would simply record all of the monthly meetings on the phone. And you make that voicemail available. We put that voicemail out there for the public, and a parent anywhere. A lot of parents don't have access to the internet, don't have access to computers or laptops, but 99% of the parents have cell phones or land phones, and they can simply access it and find out where the meetings are and what's going on. So that's a no-brainer in terms of cost and being able to set up.
So you are putting forward PPS Public Access System as a motion.
Yes.
Is there a second to the motion?
I second it.
Brentley Hawley. Discussion on the motion. Mrs. Khaleesi?
Thank you. I have a couple of issues with some of these recommendations. First of all, I think they should have went through a committee. I'm not even sure which committee it should have went through, but this is something that the board should have the opportunity to discuss a little bit more at length than being kind of forced to make a decision on what we're not even sure we can accommodate. But some of these things, for example, as a public servant and as one that responds to any constituent that calls me, first of all, I'm listed in the phone book. They can look me up and call me at home, and that's what people do. I don't like voicemail systems. I find them very cold. We have an administrative assistant that takes our calls, screens them for us, 9 out of 10 times, deals with the issues for us, and has the parent or the constituent resolve their issues before we even know about it. And I'd prefer it be done that way through, instead of a voicemail message and then they have to wait till somebody gets the voicemail. I think that we're doing a disservice by putting a voicemail system in. The access to when our board meetings are, first of all, it's public information on our website. It's advertised in the newspapers by law. So it is very easy to get this access of information. And again, you call the board office or you call the superintendent's office, you will know when the meetings are. The public hearings, I think that we've improved the process of public hearings in the last couple of months. By now, our staff has been very, very aggressive in how to make sure that the public hearing people that come in front of us have the opportunity to speak and in a very orderly fashion. Everybody's given every opportunity to speak to us. As far as the public meetings being in a specific room, I think sometimes the bigger a room is, the less personal it becomes. It is the committee room for a reason. The unlocked doors. I have come into this building after that comment has been made and intentionally walked through the halls. Yes, some doors are locked on this side of the building, but the access for public to come in is now very accommodating. You walk in the one door downstairs and you leave through that door. That controls any kind of, what it really does is help the public come in and out of this building in the same orderly fashion where there's no way of getting lost. In this building, you can get lost in. Stenographer. I think some people think that the stenographer comes at a very low cost, no offense to anybody here. And we pay a lot of money for the print of any of our information. And today, it's online. It's online. So there's no reason to have to kill another tree. And a $10 flat rate, I don't think pays for 5 pages. It's not inexpensive at all. It's extremely expensive, and then as long as our meetings go, it'll be very expensive. So I'm sorry, but I can't support any of these when I think that we're actually quite efficient. But I would like to have this sort of discussion in a committee. I think that this board should talk about these items, but not in this venue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi. Mrs. Fink.
The change for the public hearing where the speakers speak from up on the balcony, that was done to facilitate access for those who may have difficulty going up and down the steps. And that seems to be a good solution. I don't see a problem with the room that we hold it in, and speakers can they can sit in the room before it's their turn, and then come back in the room and sit when they're done talking. As far as the other things on here, just for safety reasons, I don't think it's a good idea to have all doors unlocked and, have it open. We haven't gone to the lengths that they have downtown yet, where you have to go through a metal detector. And I really think that, the other things that are in here, we should be discussing at a committee meeting and not here at the legislative meeting when we're ready to take votes on everything else.
Thank you, Mrs. Fink. Dr. Hawley.
I will agree that I would like to have this in a committee meeting as well, but I'd also like to have information from staff as to the things that you've already completed in the items, because I know for some of these items you have changed, so we would know that up front. Maybe for each item you can identify what you've already accomplished in terms of supporting each of the items that Mr. Brentley is asking for.
Dr. Hawley, these are all things that would come under board operation and would be decided on by the 9 of us. But you're just asking for history from staff.
Yes, there are some things that Mr. Camarda has already put in place to support some of these items. So just to have that listed, so that all 9 board members will know exactly what has been done in the past. Okay?
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Mr. McCray.
I'll agree with that also. I think we need to attach a fiscal note to it, however, because in this time of budget shortfalls, we can't afford to add any more to our budget. We had some abstentions tonight because of that very factor. And like I say, and this just comes to us cold like this. I can't vote on it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Mr. Sumter. Ms. Shealy. Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call vote, please?
One of the things I just wanted to just kind of dispel, I mean, you hear the super, super ridiculous comments, but one thing I just wanted to point out, the doors would be unlocked during public meetings so that the public can simply have access to the meeting. You don't lock a door while you're spending people's money, okay? The other thing that's mentioned is committee. We always find a committee no matter what I present, and I'm kind of used to that. But what committee? Or will we make up one, or all of a sudden it becomes the responsibility of someone to tie it into another committee, another committee? The stenographer, there is no way that you can raise the question of cost when having public record available to the public. I've always said that for poor people in this community, we need the Poor People's ACLU, someone who can advocate for when poor people's rights and people of color's rights are just trampled over. There is no justification for not adding that item so that people would simply have access to the necessary records just for their sake. They're taxpayers. And then the final thing, the comment that was made is that, it was just thrown together at the last minute and we can't do it. It's just about a zero cost. Secondly, I want to remind this board that we do have a preferential treatment on how we handle certain board members. I have to remind you again, the item with Mr. Eisler just a month or so ago, he was able to say in a few words, I am pulling up, untabling the Shenley High School. No one demanded anything in writing. No one demanded any discussion. And you definitely know better to refer him to a committee. And this thing was presented. It passed. It was highly divisive down racial lines. And we didn't hear all the comments. So once again, this is a public display on how difficult it is for certain board members, especially board members of color, regardless of how well intended the items are come before you, and the variety of excuses and the variety of reasons. The bottom line is, if it's true of our financial situation, you're going to need some friends. We're going to need some friends. If it's true that they're talking about a very, very serious financial situation, will we have to close schools again? Will we have to cut back services again? And anybody in their right mind would know that it's better to have them supporting us and with us as we move forward, and not to have them on the other side raising problems or either attacking us. So it is just continues to be a fascinating way of how to deal, but you cannot continue to move forward and not make these things available to the public. Yes, you have a vote to shut it down, shouldn't even have to be a vote. And if this administration or leadership or whoever moved forward on some of these items, what's next? Will we take? You're taking microphones away from a board member who is elected by the people and are not allowing him or her to speak if necessary at a public hearing is just unheard of. So those are the things that just usually some of the ridiculous comments to simply say that we don't support it or introducing new items is only reserved for certain board members. And by the way, technically under new business, no board member is required to give anything in writing. He's not necessarily required to take it through a committee. It is a new business item. You do it for some, and others you simply come up with the simple or non-existing excuses to do that. So once again, it was a wonderful public display, but at the end of the day, you're going to need the public, and for the way that we spent around this table over the last 7 years or so, somebody's got to do some serious explaining, and why not begin to share that information, make it available to the public now.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Dr. Hawley.
Mr. Brentley, I agree with having more public access to the system here. I just really think that it's important for us to hear from the staff as to, for each item, if they've already completed some of these items. And I can see here that some of these items have been completed, and then they can tell us some as to the reasons why they're not recommending some other items. For example, it's not just the financial part of this, but I'm also looking for the security part of this as well. And nobody has mentioned that. So we want to have public access, but we also want to make sure that the public is safe in coming in and out of the building, and also the staff and board members as well. That's my only concern. I just would like to know more about where we are with the system so that that everybody is comfortable. And I do believe wholeheartedly that we should have as much public access as possible, but we need to do it in the right way. And I just want to make sure that that's going to happen. It's not that I disagree with your motive or even having this as a new business item. That's my only concern.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Mr. McCray.
I just have a question for Mr. Weiss. As a legislative body, are we allowed to pass something like this without identifying where the money's going to come from, what line item from the budget?
Nothing prevents you from doing it. You're allowed to do it.
But we have no idea what line item it's coming from.
Well, okay. No, you don't. But
that's why we need the staff to discuss this and give us an idea. Thank you.
I have a quick question. Our committee meetings are presently audio recorded, and I do have asked Mrs. Wenger to make copies of them following the meetings to get to board members who miss the meetings. Does anyone know, is there any request from the public for a copy of the audios of the meetings? And if so, are we charging for them, or is this a free service that we would do?
To my knowledge, we've not had any requests.
Okay. Any further comments?
Let's make one thing clear. Let's not confuse the issue. audio and a accurate, hard-written transcripts are two different things. You know, yes, you can have access to the audio, but having the actual transcript and referring to it and understanding it and reading it and clearly identify who's saying it is more important as well. So, you know, we cannot mix apples and oranges. If you just don't support the public's availability of getting information, then say that. But let's not make it like it's they're one and the same, which they are absolutely different.
You're right, because personally I prefer the audio so I can listen to it while I'm doing something else and do two things. But you're right, people have different choices. Any other comments? Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call on the motion for
excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt
Pittsburgh Public School Public Access System?
Mr. Bruntley?
Yes.
Mrs. Khaleesi?
No.
Mrs. Fink?
No.
Dr. Hawley?
I abstain.
Mr. Eisler has stepped out. Mr. McCray?
No.
Ms. Shealy? Mr. Sumter?
No.
Mrs. Azuda?
No.
Motion fails.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Are there any other items to be brought before for board action at this time? All right, and we'll start now with our announcements to be brought before this evening. Mr. Brentley.
Yes, I want to just ask of the administration. I attended the State of the District event at Kappa, and I would just only ask if we ever plan another one, that if we would just allow board members to at least consult or to share some opinions, and we can share, or at least I would like to share some of the things that I think should be included when you capture the audience and you do a big marketing piece on it. I just only ask that we do that. My biggest concern is that we still walked away without a clear plan. And if we are in the situation that we are in 24 months and counting, we just need, where's the direction? And I didn't get that. Some things were glossed over and there were some general terms. And so I want to announce to the board that this Sunday at 8:30, there will be a parent's response to the State of the District. At the meeting, there was a parent there who rushed up to the stage immediately, shared with me her concerns and what we did not do, how she felt. And so I've been able to give her that opportunity uncut, unedited, and as a board and administration, instead of raising or looking at things negatively, we should use it as a learning tool. She comes out of a school that's one of the failing schools. She comes from out of the districts. It's one of the failing districts. She is a volunteer, spends countless hours in the district, loves the district, and she's a partner. But we should find a way to listen and then find a way to take some of her suggestions and recommendations and to simply apply them. So that will air this Sunday. Roll call, 1410 KQV, 8:30 a.m. It is a parent's response to the November 15th State of the District report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Mrs. Khaleesi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Greenfield organization every year has a event where they recognize all people that have volunteered in the community for whatever reason. This year, they have a section that is strictly for the education. And this year, that award went to one of our principals, Mr. Rosenthal, Eric Rosenthal from Greenfield School. I unfortunately missed the event that evening. However, I think that it is something that when a community recognizes the principal of a school that brings so much into the community and is part of the community, whether they live there or not, I think it's something that we should recognize and honor. So I just thought it would be nice to mention that Mr. Rosenthal received that award, and we congratulate him. He he's well welcomed in our community. So, thank you to Mr. Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi. Mrs. Fink. Dr. Hawley.
Yes. Last Tuesday, November 13th, was the election for the NAACP Executive Board. And one of our own from the Pittsburgh Public Schools, Anita Walker, she won the secretary of the NAACP. So I want to say congratulations to her, and she is a loyal employee of the Pittsburgh Public Schools. I also want to say thank you to Dr. Marlon Barnett. I don't know her married name, I'm sorry. What is it? Waters. She is now the first vice president of the NAACP, so we want to give a shout out of congratulations to both. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Mr. McCray.
This morning, I had the pleasure of attending the CES Expo, and I think everybody should make it a point to get there if they possibly can. These students just blew me away. I could not believe 10th graders talking on a level that, I have a 4-year college degree, and it's like, whoa, come on, guys. But this is just an example of what the hard work this district is producing. Some very, very talented students, very gifted and very talented. And finally, Saturday is Small Business Saturday. Support your small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. I just want to wish everybody a safe and happy holiday season. And because it's coming up toward the end of the year, if you're looking for tax deductions, consider giving to the Pittsburgh Promise, consider giving to Need. Consider investing in the future of our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Ms. Shealy. Okay. Seeing no further business, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Shealy, McCray, all those in favor? Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Give us a minute and we will switch over to the intermediate unit. Go. All right. Boss says go. I'd like to call the November 20th, 2012 meeting of the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit to order. Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call?
Mrs. Khaleesi is out. Mrs. Fink?
Here.
Dr. Hawley?
Here.
Mr. Eisler has stepped out. Mr. McCray?
Here.
Ms. Shealy?
Here.
Mr. Sumter?
Present.
Mrs. Azuda?
Here.
7 members present.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Will board members please turn to the minutes from last month, October 24th, 2012 legislative meeting. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions? Shealy, Sumter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right. Go to the Committee on Education. There was nothing pulled from agenda review. Are there any questions or concerns that anyone would like to voice now? Seeing none, Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Brentley?
Yes.
Mrs. Fink?
Yes.
Dr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Ms. Shealy?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda?
Yes.
7 aye.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Let's move to the committee report on business that is before us. Are there any questions that were not addressed at agenda review? Concerns anyone would like to? Seeing none, Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Brentley?
Yes.
Mrs. Fink?
Yes.
Dr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Ms. Shealy?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda?
Yes.
7 aye.
There are no personnel items this evening for the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit. Are there any other items anyone would like to be brought before the board at this time? Before we adjourn, I'd like to join with Mr. Sumter in wishing everyone a very happy Thanksgiving. May I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, I don't know. Shealy and McCray, I think. All those in favor? Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.